Welcome to Knights and Lore, where history comes alive. Today we're going back to 1373, a period in time where France starts its offensive to take back lands that England had long claimed. Do you think they reclaim the lands or not? Please let me know in the comments below, and also don't forget to like and subscribe.
The wind was fierce on that October morning in 1373, howling through the trees and whipping up the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. It carried with it the unmistakable tang of fear and anticipation. I, Jean de Beaufort, stood among the ranks of French soldiers, my heart pounding in my chest. This day, this battle could change the course of the war. We had gathered near the town of Bergerac, a strategic stronghold held by the English, who had been a thorn in our side for far too long. As dawn broke, the mist began to lift, revealing the sprawling landscape before us. The town's walls loomed in the distance, a grey stone standing resolute against the pale light. The English had fortified their position well, anticipating our assault. We had no choice but to break through their defences if we were to regain the territory that rightfully belonged to France. I glanced at my comrades, their faces a mix of grim determination and steely resolve. Captain Pierre d'Avignon, a seasoned warrior with scars to tell tales of past battles, stood at the forefront, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He turned to address us, his voice cutting through the morning chill. Men of France, today we fight not just for land, but for our honour, for our families, and for our king. The English have held our land long enough. We shall show them the might of France, the courage that runs in our veins. A roar of approval erupted from the ranks, and I felt a surge of pride and determination. We had trained for this moment, endured hardships and sacrifices. Now it was time to reclaim what was ours. We began our march towards the town, the ground beneath our feet trembling with the weight of our numbers. The clang of armour and the rhythmic thud of boots filled the air, a symphony of impending conflict. We moved as one, a single entity with a singular purpose. My hands tightened around the hilt of my sword, the cold metal a reassuring presence. The first line of defence was a series of barricades and trenches manned by English archers. As we approached, the air grew thick with tension. Then, with a shrill whistle, the first volley of arrows was released. They arced through the sky, a deadly rain descending upon us. I raised my shield just in time, the impact jolting through my arm. Around me, men cried out in pain, some falling to the ground, their lifeblood staining the earth. We pressed on, determined to breach their defences. Captain d'Avignon led the charge, his sword flashing as he cut down any who stood in his way. I followed closely, my own blade finding its mark as I fought through the chaos. The sounds of battle enveloped me, the clash of steel, the cries of the wounded, the shouts of command. It was a brutal, visceral cacophony that seemed to drown out everything else. As we pushed forward, the English resistance began to falter. Our numbers and determination were proving too much for them. We reached the first barricade, tearing it down and pressing on towards the town walls. The gates loomed ahead, a formidable barrier that would require all our strength to breach. "To the gates!" Captain d'Avignon shouted, rallying us for the final push. We surged forward, our momentum unstoppable. The English defenders were desperate now, their ranks thinning as they struggled to hold us back. With a mighty heave, we slammed into the gates, battering them with all our might. The wood groaned and splintered under the assault, and finally, with a resounding crash, they gave way. We poured into the town, a wave of steel and fury. The streets erupted into chaos as we clashed with the remaining English soldiers. In the thick of the fighting, I found myself face to face with an English knight. His eyes were fierce, his armour gleaming in the morning light. We circled each other, the world around us fading into the background. With a roar, he lunged at me, his sword swinging in a deadly arc. I parried, the force of his blow reverberating through my arm. We traded strikes, our movements a deadly dance of steel and sweat. Finally, I saw an opening. With a swift thrust, I drove my sword into his side, the blade piercing his armour. He staggered, a look of shock and pain crossing his face before he crumpled to the ground. I stood over him, chest heaving, the reality of the kill settling over me. There was no time to dwell on it. The battle raged on, and we had to secure the town. As the day wore on, the tide turned in our favour. The English were pushed back, their numbers dwindling. By afternoon, the fighting had all but ceased. The town of Bergerac was ours. We stood victorious, though the cost had been high. The streets were littered with the fallen, both friend and foe, a stark reminder of the brutality of war. Captain d'Avignon gathered us in the town square, his face a mix of exhaustion and pride. Today, we have taken a significant step towards reclaiming our land, but this is only the beginning. We will not rest until every inch of France is free from English hands. For now, we honour our fallen comrades and tend to the wounded. Tomorrow, we continue our march. In the following months, we continued our relentless campaign. Each victory was a step closer to our goal, but each battle was also a reminder of the war's toll. We fought through the winter, braving the cold and the hardships that came with it. The English were formidable opponents, but our resolve was unbreakable. In the spring of 1374, we set our sights on Poitiers, a key stronghold in the heart of France. The English had fortified the city well, knowing its strategic importance. As we approached, the tension was palpable. This battle would be a turning point in our campaign. The assault began at dawn, the first light of day illuminating the city walls. Our siege engines roared to life, hurling stones and flaming projectiles at the fortifications. The English responded with volleys of arrows, their determination as fierce as our own. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning wood. For days we battered the city, each attack chipping away at the English defences. It was a grueling, relentless struggle, but we were undeterred. Finally, after a week of siege, we breached the outer walls. The final assault was a brutal, close-quarters fight through the streets of Poitiers. Every corner, every alley was a battleground. In the heat of the battle, I found myself fighting alongside Captain d'Avignon once more. His leadership and bravery were a beacon to us all. Together, we pushed through the English lines, determined to secure the city. As we reached the central square, the resistance crumbled. The English, realizing their defeat, began to retreat. With the city of Poitiers in our hands, we had dealt a significant blow to the English forces. It was a hard-won victory, but it marked a turning point in our campaign. The momentum was now with us, and we pressed our advantage. Over the next year, we continued to reclaim territory, each victory bringing us closer to our ultimate goal. The battles were fierce, the cost high, but our determination never wavered. By 1375, we had regained much of the land that had been lost, the tide of the war turning in our favour. As I stood on the battlements of a reclaimed castle, looking out over the land we had fought so hard to liberate, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. We had faced incredible odds, but through courage, determination and unity, we had prevailed. The war was far from over, but the dream of a free and united France was within our grasp. In the years that followed, we continued to fight, each battle bringing us closer to peace. The memory of those who had fallen, the sacrifices made, and the victories won would stay with me forever. We had fought for our land, our people, and our honour, and in the end, we had reclaimed what was ours. France was once again a land of hope and possibility, a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. The autumn of 1375 brought with it a rare and precious lull in the fighting. After our string of victories, the English forces were in disarray, retreating to regroup and fortify their remaining strongholds. For the first time in years, there was a tangible sense of hope among the French people. The reclaimed territories began to rebuild, and the scars of war, though still raw, started to heal. In the town of Bergerac, where our campaign had begun, the transformation was remarkable. The streets, once the site of fierce battles, were now bustling with life. Markets thrived, families reunited, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and song. It was a poignant reminder of what we had been fighting for, the chance for our people to live in peace and prosperity. Captain d'Avignon, now a decorated war hero, was summoned to Paris to meet with King Charles V. His leadership and valour had been instrumental in our successes, and the king wished to personally commend him. As his trusted lieutenant, I accompanied him on the journey, my heart swelling with pride and anticipation. Paris was a city reborn. The walls, which had once echoed with the cries of the besieged, now stood as a testament to resilience and strength. As we entered the royal court, the grandeur and splendour were almost overwhelming. Tapestries depicting our victories adorned the walls, and the air was thick with the scent of incense and fresh flowers. King Charles V, seated on his ornate throne, rose to greet us. His eyes, sharp and discerning, conveyed a deep respect and gratitude. Captain d'Avignon, Lieutenant de Beaufort, he began, his voice resonant and authoritative. France owes you a great debt. Your bravery and leadership have brought us to the brink of victory. The reclamation of our lands is a testament to your unwavering dedication and the indomitable spirit of our people." The king's words were met with a chorus of applause. It was a moment of profound pride, but also one of reflection. The cost of our victories had been steep, and the faces of fallen comrades lingered in my mind. The war was not yet over, but we had achieved something remarkable. We had given our people hope. In the months that followed, the focus shifted from battles to diplomacy. The tide of the war had turned so decisively in our favour that the English were forced to the negotiating table. Peace talks began, and though they were fraught with tension and uncertainty, there was a growing sense that an end to the conflict was within reach. During this time, I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions. The relentless pace of the war had left little room for personal reflection, but now, in the quiet moments, the weight of it all settled over me. The faces of those we had lost, the villages we had seen ravaged, and the lives forever changed, these memories were etched into my soul. One evening, as the sun set over the rolling hills of the French countryside, I stood by the grave of a dear friend who had fallen in the battle for Poitiers. The twilight cast long shadows, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Captain d'Avignon joined me, his presence a comforting reminder of the bonds forged in the crucible of war. "Jean," he said quietly, "we have seen and done things that will haunt us for the rest of our days. But we have also given our people a future. We have reclaimed our land, our honour, and our hope. Never forget that." His words resonated deeply. We had fought for something greater than ourselves, and in doing so, we had become part of something enduring and noble. The pain and sacrifices were real, but so too was the legacy of our struggle. By the winter of 1375, the peace talks had made significant progress. A truce was declared, bringing a much-needed respite from the horrors of war. The Treaty of Bruges was signed, marking a tentative but hopeful step towards lasting peace. The English agreed to relinquish control of several key territories, acknowledging the shifting balance of power. As the snows of winter blanketed the land, there was a palpable sense of relief and renewal. The French people, weary from years of conflict, began to rebuild their lives with a renewed vigour. Villages were restored, fields replanted, and the rhythms of daily life resumed. For me, the journey had been transformative. I had entered the war as a young, inexperienced soldier, driven by a sense of duty and patriotism. I emerged from it a seasoned warrior, my heart hardened by the realities of battle, but also softened by the camaraderie and sacrifices of my comrades. As I stood on the ramparts of the reclaimed castle one final time, looking out over the land we had fought so hard to liberate, I felt a profound sense of closure. The dream of a free and united France was no longer just a dream, it was a reality we had forged through blood, sweat, and unyielding determination. The war had changed us all, leaving indelible marks on our souls. But it had also united us, binding us together in a shared struggle for a brighter future. And as the sun set on that winter day, casting a golden glow over the landscape, I knew that we had truly reclaimed not just our land, but our identity, our hope, and our destiny. France, once fractured and beleaguered, stood strong and united, and in the hearts of its people, the spirit of resilience and courage burned brighter than ever.